Mr. Chair, before I begin my round of questions, I do have a small motion to move. I move that, given the chair made a unilateral decision to cancel the meeting on October 10th, 2024, then called a meeting with less than the usual practice of 48 hours notice during a constituency week without consulting other parties, the committee members request that the chair consult and obtain the consensus of the parties for calling meetings during constituency weeks and respect a minimum 48-hour notice period while adhering as much as possible to the committee's usual schedule. And this should be in everybody's...
Order, Chair.
Yep, sorry, I'm going to interrupt you, Mr. Baines. Mr. General.
Yeah, this is clearly not on the matter at hand, Chair. I think Mr. Baines would be well within his rights to give notice of this motion and move it at the appropriate time. We have witnesses who... It's my time, Mr. Chair.
I'm going to interrupt both of you. Sorry, I'm going to interrupt both of you. We're not in committee business. You do not put your notice on motion, and it's not one of, I don't believe it's one of an at-hand motion. If you want to read it into the record and then bring it up Tuesday, you are welcome to. But it's not...
I'd like to challenge your decision there, sir.
Oh, come on.
I will have the clerk take a vote. Ms. Atwin?
Overrule the chair.
So you're voting against, because the question is whether or not the chair's ruling should be sustained.
Against.
Against. Mr. Baines?
Against.
Mr. Johari?
Against.
Mr. Zuberi?
Against.
Mr. Koto? Mr. Koto, are you there? Okay. Ms. Block?
For.
Mr. Jennings?
For.
It's not going to pass.
Mr. Brock?
In favor.
Madame Vignola? On ne vous a pas entendu, Madame Vignola.
Envoyez-le avec contre.
Okay. And Mr. Backrack?
Against.
These guys don't want to work.
I think MP Koto's back.
Yeas pour 3 and nays contre 6. The chair?
I'm here. I was here when the vote was being taken.
It doesn't matter.
It wouldn't have mattered, Mr. Koto, but thanks. Okay. The chair's overruled. Continue, Mr. Baines.
Okay, sorry.
It doesn't matter, Mr. Koto.
Okay, thank you.
We'll record your vote, though, so don't worry. Baines, continue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I believe the motion has been emailed in both languages to everybody's inbox. And
who is this Yahoo?
Are you speaking on Baines?
Yes, I'll just briefly speak to it. As you know, sir, it's very difficult for people like myself from the West Coast to make our way down to Ottawa when we don't have the ample amount of time to get there for some of these important studies. And we've seen this on a number of occasions. At the same time, constituency weeks for us are an opportunity to do extremely important work on several priorities that we are working on. And today, especially, there was an interim housing project, several interim housing project summits that we were working on. And in this, if we had enough, or if I had enough ample notice, I could have made adjustments to those things, and it disrupted several community partners' schedules. And again, all of this work is important. I believe you can appreciate that. I think that if we can get to an official ruling from you on this motion, with respect to what's stated in it. I think it would be appreciated if you could, follow some of the guidelines that we are all used to and that are stated out for us in the appropriate manner on how we conduct committees and the committee business. So thank you.
Okay, Mr. Genuis and then Mr. Brock.
Good. The boys.
And Mr.
Okay,
Zuberi.
thank you, Chair. Look, this is really, really frustrating. We've all come here to work and to hear from the witnesses. I know Liberals have a caucus revolt to plan, I guess, but they should be willing to come to committee, ask questions to the witnesses. This is the studies that we've been doing for a long time. People were aware of this study happening. This is information that we need to hear from, and frankly. I haven't, the motion was just moved. It's a procedural motion completely unrelated to the testimony that we're hearing. This is a tactic from Liberal MPs who want to silence the witnesses, who are frankly calling them out. These are witnesses that are calling Liberals out for their grotesque mismanagement of a program that was supposed to benefit Indigenous peoples. We have a witness here from the Ghost Warrior Society talking about how under this government, and willing to criticize all parties, but specifically highlighting how under this government there's been a significant growth in non-Indigenous insiders appropriating for themselves benefits that are supposed to be for Indigenous peoples. I want to hear this testimony. If government members have a response to try to justify or explain their failures, they should be willing to engage in dialogue with this witness. Instead, we have a procedural motion that's moved that's clearly out of order, that clearly could be dealt with at another time, that clearly could be discussed at a meeting next week with proper notice. But we have the witnesses here. We should hear from these witnesses instead of countenancing this Liberal tactic to try to silence witnesses that have been critical of their approach. I'm very surprised to see members of other parties supporting the government in overruling clearly a fair ruling by the chair to say that this motion was not in order. I think we need to hear from these Indigenous leaders who have made the time to come to Ottawa to give their feedback and that are contributing constructively to our study and our work. This is really surprising to see the government in the middle of this testimony move this motion that effectively is preventing these Indigenous leaders from sharing their experience, that is preventing us from getting to the bottom of this Liberal corruption within the Indigenous procurement program, where non-Indigenous, well-connected insiders have taken advantage of this program. So with that in mind, Chair, I hope we will be able to get back to the witnesses. I'm happy to review this motion. There may be details that we can discuss in it procedurally in terms of how we govern our business going forward. I think Conservatives would be very open to a reasonable discussion of this motion, but not moved at a time when it's clearly out of order, overruling the chair to say it's in order when it's not, and trying to shut down witnesses in the process. So I would now move that the committee proceed to hear from the witnesses.
That was smooth.
Thank you, Mr. Genuis. That's a dilatory motion. We will take a vote, and the motion is to return to hear the witness testimony. Mr. Clerk?
Point of order. Don't we have a motion here?
Yeah, it's a Mr. Genuis. This is a dilatory motion, so we have to.
I understand. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Ms. Atwin?
Point of order. I think that actually you have to move to adjourn. It's not actually a dilatory motion.
No, you don't. It's in the book.
I'm asking the clerk. I have read it.
You can ask questions to the clerk through the chair, and I've stated it's a dilatory motion, which is why we're going to the vote. But if you want to hear the clerk reaffirm what I've just said, go ahead and reaffirm just what I said. Go ahead.
Yes, I can reaffirm what the chair said. Indeed, the motion that was moved by Mr. Genuis is considered a dilatory motion, which is to be put forward forthwith without amendment or debate.
Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Ms. Atwin?
No.
Mr. Baines?
No.
Mr. Johari?
No.
Mr. Zuberi,
No.
Mr. Cotto,
No. No.
Ms. Block,
Yes.
Mr. Janice,
Yes.
Mr. Brock,
Yes.
It's the same thing.
Madame
Six,
Vignola,
7 and 3.
Wait.
Oh, okay. 6
Mr.
6 and 4.
Backrack.
No.
Yeah, 6 and 4. So it doesn't
Yeas
pass.
pour 4, 4, and nays contre 6, 6.
These liberals just don't even want to hear from the witnesses. They don't want to work.
Mr. Zubari.
Point of order. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to flag I lowered and raised my hand by mistake, but I still want to keep my order. Thank you,
Yeah,
Mr. Chair.
I was getting to your name than Mr. Jouari's. Mr. Brock, go ahead.
Well, I have much to say. First, I want to deeply apologize to both of our witnesses who are here to continue a discussion and an examination and review of a very serious issue. As I identified, Ms. Semaniganis, you traveled over 5 hours from Northern Ontario to be here in person. My colleague, Mr. Genuis, said how disappointing this maneuver was. He used softer language than I intend on using. I find it disgusting. I find it disrespectful. And a social justice issue such as this deserves the appropriate amount of time. Now, to the individuals you've heard on Zoom, some of my colleagues, the Liberal colleagues from British Columbia, for instance, talk about break weeks. And we all enjoy break weeks from time to time. But the nice thing about being a parliamentarian and having a hybrid format such as this, where people can appear in person and appear on screen, is you can talk and walk, you can talk and chew gum at the same time. For instance, this morning, this meeting started at 12 noon. I was engaging with constituents this morning in my riding by telephone and by Zoom. I intend on doing the very same thing before I leave Ottawa. And when I return to my riding, I'll be doing the same thing. You don't often hear that from the Liberal colleagues, because what has been happening here for the better part of 2 years that we've been examining one scandal after another is we see a pattern of shutting down uncomfortable, difficult conversations. This Prime Minister, and I know you don't want to be political, but I certainly can, has the reputation of being the only Prime Minister in the history of this country to have been found guilty not once, but twice of ethical violations.
Point of order.
Ministers
Sorry, Mr.
in his cabinet.
Sorry, Mr. Brock, excuse me. Go ahead on your point of order.
I'd just like to call into question the relevance of what Mr. Brock is putting forward right now.
Oh, I intend on getting there, Chair.
Go ahead, Mr. Brock.
The Prime Minister set an example of unethical governance and an unethical way of being a steward of taxpayer monies. After he was found guilty twice, various ministers of his cabinet have been found guilty. Other members of his backbench have been found guilty of ethical violations. So we see a pattern that I have seen in this particular committee. I have seen at Public Accounts, another parliamentary committee. I have seen at Justice. I have seen at Ethics. To give you a couple of examples to both witnesses. We had the Auditor General who finally took an interest in conducting an audit of the ArriveCan scandal. I referenced that in the first question I put to you.
Oh my God.
Yes, Ms.
What
Appel?
now?
Mr. Chair, we're debating a motion about you showing respect and giving notice for meetings. This has nothing to do with what Mr. Brock is going off about right now, and I would just really like for your ruling on relevance.
We always allow wide latitude in the discussions. I think every one of you has been called on relevance on previous motions. I'm sure Mr. Brock will get to it. Go ahead, Mr. Brock.
Absolutely. And to Miss Atwin and the rest of her Liberal colleagues, I informed you at the outset, this is going to be lengthy and I will get to relevancy, but it'll be on my time, Miss Atwin, certainly not yours or any member of your party. So to give you an example of the disrespect shown by the Liberal Party and its members and the NDP, which at that point was in a coalition with the Liberal government, and hypocrisy is just abundant when we're talking about the NDP party because they talk a tough game in the House. They talk tough in social media about how difficult.
Holy point of orders.
Yeah, Mr. Coteau, again, we might have an issue with your mic, so...
Can I try?
Yeah, I was going to say try, but don't go too fast, and I'll interrupt you if we're having an issue, but go ahead and I'll wait for a signal from our interpreters.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm new to the committee, but I just want to make sure if we just vote on this procedural vote quickly, we can get back to the witnesses, right? We could be back to the witnesses after a vote in 2 minutes. If we just stop debating and deal with the motion, okay? Correct?
Let me just see if the translation's working and everything. Oh, we're okay. It's not really a point of order, but yes,
okay.
if they're...
I just, just so the witnesses know that if we actually stop debating this procedural item and voted on it, we could actually get back to it right away. If
it was withdrawn, we could get back to it right away. If it was voted on, we'd get back to it right away. So both ways, yes. Go ahead, Mr. Brock.
So to the witnesses here, I wanted to give you a couple of examples of similar situations that you've just experienced where they want to silence witnesses. The ArriveCan scandal, when it first gained speed, the Auditor General was conducting an audit. She was asked to attend a committee to give us an update on the audit. It was then revealed that the RCMP had started an investigation. I had put a question to the Auditor General about when she was informed that the RCMP had started their investigation, and her response was, I read it in the newspaper just like everybody else. And I expressed my deep concern and disgust that the Liberal government did not see fit to inform the Auditor General about this important fact. The moment I asked that question, my time was up. It went to a Liberal member who moved to adjourn the committee. So she literally spoke for maybe 10 minutes and a 2-hour meeting had collapsed. Similarly, other issues, RCMP commissioner attends various committees. Again, they didn't like the line of questioning. We were put to the RCMP commissioner. They moved to shut down. So it really surprised me at the timing of this particular motion, given that one Liberal member actually asked relevant questions and gave me the impression that all members here, including the government, including the NDP, including the Bloc, who voted in favor of ruling against the chair in this particular motion, wanted to sidestep the hearing of crucial evidence. So I assure you, ma'am, that regardless of what decision is made today, I will ensure that you're not silenced. I will ensure that the representatives of Plato would not be silenced. I will ensure that any Indigenous representative, whether they be in person or representing an organization, will never be silenced when it comes to this particular corruption and mismanagement of government, of taxpayer funds.
Point of order.
As I indicated to you, this is over $1 billion every
Mr. Brock,
year.
Sorry, I did not see whose point of
4
order.
points of orders.
Michael Coteau online.
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Coteau.
If Mr. Brock wants to not silence the witnesses, why doesn't he just let us vote?
That's not a point of order, Mr.
Not a point of
Coteau.
order.
Go ahead, Mr.
Oh, sorry.
Brock.
So Nice try, Mr. Koto, but that's the point, and that's the message I want to deliver to you, that these type of procedural shenanigans ought not to happen, particularly when we're dealing with a sensitive issue such as this. So I assure you, you will have an opportunity of fully participating in this committee. Thank you.